Ezra and I recently released a free course on how to remove shadows from your images. This course is really useful because it will teach you amazing techniques for removing all sorts of shadows. Honestly, before making this course, I wasn't sure that removing shadows like this was even possible. But we figured it out, and now we want to share it with you. In this video, I'm going to share the first project of the course with you so that you can get a feel for what this course is all about. Let's get started. When removing shadows from images, there are two main areas that we need to focus on. The first is brightening the image, and the second is improving the colors. Sometimes when brightening images, the colors might look a little bit off, so that's why we're dividing it into brightening first, and then adjusting the colors. To begin our brightening, I'm going to come down to our adjustments icon, and then I'm going to apply a curves adjustment. To brighten this image, I'm going to increase the spline by pressing on it and dragging it up. I want the brightness to look very bright because we're going to paint this adjustment so that it only appears on her skin, and having it very bright or very dark will make it easier to see where we're painting. We'll come back and adjust this brightness later. I'm going to close out of this dialog box. And next, I'm going to invert this curves adjustment so that it's not applied to anything. To do this, I'm going to press Command or Control-I. Now that this curves adjustment is being applied to nothing, I can paint the adjustment just on the areas that I want brightened. To do this, I'm going to press B for my paintbrush tool. Then, I'm going to make sure that I'm painting in white, because white will reveal on this black adjustment layer. I also want to make sure that my brush is set to 100% opacity, 100% flow, and 0% hardness, so that I get full color coverage and soft edges. As a reminder, I can use the bracket keys on my keyboard to increase or decrease the size of my brush. Now that I have all that set up, I'm just going to begin painting on her face. Now that I've painted on her face and it's looking great, I want to give you a little tip. If you're ever trying to brighten a face in an image, but your subject has other skin visible, it's important that you also brighten the other parts of the skin that's visible so that we can keep our image looking uniform. If you just brighten one area, it can look a little unrealistic. So I'm going to quickly paint over her hands as well. If you ever paint too much, like I just did, remember that you can always paint in black to remove from your painting. Now that I have black here and white here, as a shortcut, you can press X on your keyboard to switch between those two colors quickly as you paint. Now that we've painted over her hands and her face, we can double check our painting by using a shortcut. If we hold down Alt or Option on our keyboard and then press on the curves adjustment icon, we can see where we've painted. I want to clean up a few of these areas that I've missed by painting in white over them. To return to your normal view, you can press on the background layer to see the whole image again. Now that we've painted the face, obviously this coloring is a little bit too bright. To fix this, we can double click on the curves adjustment layer, and then we can bring down the brightness to a more appropriate level. To make our brightening look even better, we can adjust the brightening to focus mostly on the shadows and not so much on the highlights of our image. If we brighten our highlights too bright, they can begin to look a little unrealistic and blown out. To fix this, with our curves adjustment selected, I'm going to press on this gear icon to bring up our blend ranges. The blend ranges graph has two nodes on it, a shadows node and a highlights node. With both of these nodes fully raised to the top of the graph, that means that both the shadows and highlights are fully being affected by this curves adjustment. If I want this adjustment to affect the highlights a little less, I can drag down this node. Watch what happens in the image as I drag this down. You can see that our highlights are now a little less bright, and I think this is making it look a little bit better. We can also bring this node over a little bit if we want it to affect the highlights even less. I'm going to keep my highlights node set right here, and then I'll close out of this dialog box. We can now see a before and after by unchecking this curves adjustment layer. As you can see, this brightening is looking really good for this image. As a final step, I want to add a little bit more color into her skin. To add more color and saturation to the skin, we need to apply an HSL adjustment. However, if we just go to our adjustments icon and apply an HSL adjustment, adjusting the saturation this way will affect the entire colors in our image. I only want to affect the colors of her skin, so I'm going to close out of this and delete this layer. Here's a quick trick so that you're only applying the HSL adjustment to her skin. Because we painted on only her skin in the curves adjustment, I can hold down Command or Control and then click on our curves adjustment to bring up a selection of only her skin. Now, if I go and apply an HSL adjustment, and then increase the saturation, you can see that we're only affecting her skin. I'm going to bring this saturation to around 20% looks pretty good for this image, and then I'll close out of this dialog box. To get rid of the marching ants, I'm going to press Command or Control D to deselect. We can now see what a difference the saturation has made. And if I hold down Shift and select both layers, we can see how our image looked before, and here's our after with our skin brightened. This technique is perfect for removing soft shadows from your images. And just so you know, after completing all of these steps, you can always go back and adjust any of your steps. For example, if you think this brightness is a bit much, you can always double-click on your curves adjustment and adjust the brightness. You can also always have your curves adjustment selected and adjust the blend ranges. And you can also double-click on your HSL adjustment layer to affect the saturation again. Remember that with adjustments, you can always double-click on them to continue to adjust their properties. Great work on completing this first example image. Now that you've completed this first project, go ahead and click the link below to check out the rest of the course. This video just showed one technique that you can use to remove shadows, but there's a whole lot more where that came from. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the course.